Hey everyone, welcome back to Milwaukee Beer Review. As always, I'm Josh.
And I'm Ross.
And today we are taking our first stab at a little brewery out of Chicago, Illinois. This is Revolution Brewing Company, and we are finally diving into some stuff from them. Now, we've got a lot of stuff in the cellar from them, but these are three beers that, hey, it's kind of the middle of winter, close to the end of winter, and we're like, let's dive into some of these barley wines they've released over the past several months. So we are going to dive into their base barley wine, their straight jacket, plus a couple of unique variants on the straight jacket that we're going to try here on the channel. So Ross, tell us a little bit about Revolution Brewing Company, because I know they're close to your heart.
Yeah, so I've been excited for this one for a while. I think if you guys remember the big beer haul we got last year, when we got that, we do have a 2017 Revolution straight jacket. And I mentioned to Josh, like, I'm really excited. It's a bomber bottle.
Big old bomber bottle of straight jacket.
So,
we're excited to tap into that at some point.
This is a brewery I really enjoy. I really like everything I've had from them so far. So I was really excited to do this one. So Revolution opened up originally back in 2010 out in Chicago, opened up by Josh Deeth. Which if you've had any of the Deeth Tar beers, that's where they get the name from. They actually pretty limited market. They don't really do too much outside. They have a few states in the Midwest and a couple up in the Northeast, and that's really it as far as distribution. Despite that, I think back in like 2017-18, they were saying they're the 40th biggest craft brewery in the country and then the 50th biggest brewery in the country. So they're not huge in distribution, but they clearly do really well where they're at, because to hit the 40th and the top 50 in the country as far as the limited market they have, they gotta be doing something right. And I'll tell you, the beers I've had from them, I've really enjoyed. So
I have not had much from Revolution. What I have had has been really good. We've got a bunch of their stouts that we'll do here in the near future on this channel as well. Really, really good stuff from what I recall. But we're gonna dive right into the barley wines here. And Straight Jacket is the base barley wine. So we are going to try this thing. This thing comes in at, I think, a big old whopping
15.8.
15.8% ABV. This is their Straight Jacket. It is a barley wine aged in bourbon barrels. And from what I know and what I understand, I've not had Straight Jacket before, but I understand this is a pretty darn good barley wine. So let's get a little nose on the Straight Jacket. And they all look the same. You saw us pour these all out. They look almost identical. Like, you cannot tell the difference.
I mean, those heavy malt characteristics immediately hit you and everything.
The big bourbon barley wine sweetness is there. You get a little bit of like the dark fruit, kind of like the fig characteristics to a barley wine in here. A little bit of, almost a little bit like cherry sweetness to it.
I mean, I think this
vanilla.
I think it's got a heavier malt characteristic, but this is really your classic barley wine. Like when you, I mean, this is exactly what when you get a baseline barley wine, except for like a bourbon barrel one. This is what you're gonna get. And this is kind of what you expect to get.
It smells fantastic.
Yeah. So,
let's dive in.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, yeah. So it's really a nice balance, because barley wines are kind of all over the place. I think a lot of brewers take a lot of liberties with barley wines. They kind of take it as a base and do what they want to do with it. This is a very, very traditional barley wine without the over sweetness to it, though. It hits all the notes correctly.
Mouthfeel on this is light to medium.
Yeah.
Pretty typical barley wine. I don't know what's going on up there. I think there's food being thrown around by our child. No Maddie meter on this video. Mouthfeel is light, light to medium body. You can see right through this thing. You can tell it's not a super thick, viscous beer, which is what you expect from a barley wine. What's crazy, though, like front end, you immediately get a bit of the bourbon bite. It's not strong, it's very smooth, it's very creamy. And then you get the vanilla and kind of the dark fruit characteristics that come through almost immediately on the palate. And they just kind of dry up through the end of the beer, through the back end. And it's just the perfect barley wine. I've never had this before. This is one of the better barley wines I think I've ever had, and a bourbon barrel-aged barley wine is kind of like my note. This is solid. This is really good.
So the one thing you mentioned through that like, what really separates this from other barley wines is that vanilla note that comes through. It's that creaminess that comes through that you don't get with a lot of barley wines. A lot of barley wines can be really sharp, really boozy, really just kind of red, like dark fruit forward and everything. This has got that vanilla creaminess that comes through on this one that really separates it from everyone else in the market.
I really like that. For a base barley wine, oh man, Untappd, trying this right off the bat, I'm going 4.5. This is such a freaking good barley wine. I am so pumped to try that 2017 we've got sitting in the cellar, because I've never had Straight Jacket. I'll be honest, I've never had Straight Jacket before. This is just, oh man, like this is just right up there. This is a solid beer.
So I want to give it a 4.5, and I'm kind of cheating, I'm not going to lie here. I'm going to give it a 4.25 for the sole purpose of I want to give room for what we have left, because I'm really excited about what we have left.
That's fair.
So I'm going to give it a 4.25. It teeters towards a 4.5, and it's bar none one of the best barley wines I've had, especially just base barley wines. It's so well done. It's so good. It's one I look forward to every year. I love this barley wine.
So good.
Yeah.
Well done, Revolution. That is a fantastic bourbon barrel aged barley wine. So what are we trying next?
So next it's basically the base, but now it's called the Ryeway to Heaven. So it's exactly the name. This one's aged in rye barrels and bourbon barrels. Everything else is pretty much the same thing along the way. They do on the note say they use 6% rye in this. I don't know what it's actually going to add or do to this. I expect maybe a little more sweetness, but I guess we'll find out. I really don't know.
I'm assuming they're aging some of the beer in rye barrels, they're aging some of the beer in bourbon barrels, and they take a 60-40 mix and they blend them together, which makes Ryeway to Heaven, is what I'm assuming.
Sense. So we'll get a little nose on it and find out.
All right. Looks exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not getting much difference on the nose, to be honest with you.
I am getting a bit more of an earthy character to this.
Okay.
I'm not getting as much like the bourbon brightness, kind of the sweetness that you got from the Straight Jacket. It feels a little more subdued on the nose, and I think that's just a rye barrel aged.
You're right.
Beer.
Now that I kind of go back to back, I'm definitely getting that. There's a little more with the bourbon up front and the regular one. There's that kind of like that burn that comes through. This one's kind of subdued and settled out. So
yeah, I get more bourbon characteristics on this, and that kind of that rye, earthy kind of note to the nose.
I mean, still really good on the nose. Classic barley wine notes. I mean,
it almost smells a little. I think ryes kind of tend to smell a little more musty. Like there's just like there's not a sweetness behind it. They're a lot more earthy. And I know that's the word I keep throwing out, but I do think that's a legitimate way to describe this. Like it's just there's not a bright sweetness on the nose.
For those of you who had this, I guarantee you get what he's saying. Because I agree, like absolutely. So,
all right, let's try it. Cheers. We said the same thing. Yeah. Jinx! Yeah.
Yeah. It's got the same flavor profile as the first one, but it's much more smooth. I wouldn't say it's as it's not maybe full body, full flavored as the first one.
I think there's like on the palate of this, so similar body, right? Light to medium body. Although I think the body leans heavier. I think just because there's a bit more viscosity to this beer, just based on the fact that you're not getting that sweetness that you're getting from the traditional Straight Jacket, that's missing. And not missing in a bad way. No. There's definitely like a syrupy sweetness to this almost.
Yeah, it's not even like the syrupy sweetness, it's almost the syrupy like texture. It feels thicker.
It feels that way on the palate, for sure.
Absolutely. Honestly, the weird thing about this is if you haven't really had barley wines before and you want to try to get into especially like heavy barley wines. Oh, and by the way, this one also comes in 15.8%. I forgot to mention that.
By the way, Yes, that's a great point because neither of these would you guess are that high.
No, not
like
at all.
they are super subtle. Like you do not get a strong alcohol characteristic to these. Like these are very drinkable barley wines. I actually forgot they were that high as I was drinking this.
But kind of going back to my point I was going to make, like, this one would almost be closer to like I want to try barley wines. I don't know how I'm going to like them. Before the first one's such a traditional, heavy flavored good barley wine. This one still has those same vanilla characteristics, that creaminess that comes through, which I think adds to that like kind of like thicker texture that we're getting. But it's much more subtle in every which way, in a good way. It's not bad in any way. It's just subtle compared to the first one that we had.
It's everything in the straitjacket, but subdued with a little bit of the more earthy tones that you get from rye barrel aging. But it's equally as good.
It's really good.
If you like rye, and this isn't even heavy rye, I would say that the 40% just traditional bourbon barrels that this is aged in kind of almost cancel out the rye, but the rye just makes this a little bit more tame.
Yeah, it's really well balanced. I gotta put this on Untappd. I'm struggling because I'm gonna put this one also at 4 1/4. I'm gonna put it right with the other one, and I'll say I like the first one more, but they both get 4 1/4.
Oh man,
yeah, it's good.
The vanilla notes on this are good.
I know.
I'm putting this one at a 4.5 too.
Wow.
I was gonna put this at a 4 1/4. I was sitting here thinking like, which one do I like more? But just, I think the subtlety and the earthy notes of the Ryeway to Heaven give this one just a unique character to it, where that vanilla comes out. It's just as good as the straitjacket, but not traditional barley wine as good. Like, it's just its own unique thing.
Yeah.
Damn, Revolution, impressed.
I'm just gonna fanboy. I'm so happy you like these because I was so excited for this show. I was curious what you thought, so I'm really excited.
So good. That's so good. Man, all right. So we got one more to try here in this video. So we've got the maple jacket. So you got this one at Discount?
Yep.
Discount Liquor here in the Milwaukee market. So this is same base barley wine, except this thing is aged for a year in maple syrup bourbon barrels. So the bourbon barrels were used for maple syrup, and then they were sweetened with syrup. So not only were they aged in bourbon barrels, but then it was over sweetened with the syrup from those original bourbon barrels added back in secondary. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Totally different kind of adjunct palette here. Let's get a little nose on the maple jacket. Whoa.
No, oddly enough, I don't know what you're getting, but oddly enough, I'm not getting a lot of maple. I'm getting actually a lot more malt characteristic than I've gotten from the first two on this one.
It's for sure maltier, but I think the malty characteristics that are coming through on the nose are the maple syrup. Okay. I'm assuming that's what they are. It smells maple syrup like. We've said this several times on the channel. On the channel, we have like a baseline for what maple syrup is in a beer. Eagle Park's Booze for Breakfast. This is not that. Far more subtle than that.
Yeah,
but it's there for sure.
I mean, no, it smells good. And again, it's. I'm getting heavy malt characteristics, which I like. I'm a fan of that. So
yeah, it smells malty.
Yeah.
I think this might be a little darker. It's about equal to the straitjacket, maybe a little bit darker than the Ryeway.
Yeah. So,
let's give it a shot.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ooh. Oh, man.
Oh, that's good.
So, all the maple I wasn't getting on the nose it just hits you in the mouth the second you take a sip on the palate. It's a lot of maple, and it's really good. It's shockingly sweet, but not overly sweet. I know it sounds really weird because it's contradicting, but it makes sense if you've had it.
It's the sweetest of the three.
Easily.
Which you'd expect with maple syrup being a part of the characteristics of this.
Man.
Holy cow. Yeah, so I would say this is more of a medium to heavy mouthfeel. I think that's at least what it feels like compared to the first two. And I think that's the maple syrup coming through. There's
Absolutely.
a viscosity to this that isn't there on the Ryeway or the Straight Jacket. Front of the palate, bam, you get maple syrup. It's not heavy maple syrup. It's not like waffles or pancakes maple syrup, but there's definitely a maple character that's clearly not there on either of the first two beers. But that lingers and it sticks through all the way through the back end of the beer. I think it is the prominent tone throughout this. Like, you can't argue that the maple characteristics, as described, are the prominent character.
So we should note that this one does come down in the ABV to a much more comparable 14.4%. So
This is a weak one. This one's weak.
again,
Holy
though,
cow, there is no alcohol bite to this. There is nothing. It is so smooth. It is so drinkable. That is mind-bogglingly good.
no, this is really well done. I like they say it's gonna have the maple in it, and they deliver full blown with that maple, because like sometimes it's like, oh, we're gonna put maple syrup in, it's like, okay, it's there, but it's not. This is there, and the viscosity's there, what you want. I wouldn't say this is a breakfast beer. I know it has a maple syrup, and we sometimes say there's some breakfast beers. This isn't, though. This is definitely like a post-dinner nightcap type. I'm done for the day. It's really well done. Sticking this one on Untappd. I'm gonna stick to 4.25. They're all 4.25. I almost want to put the first one back up to 4.5 now that I've said everything, but I'll stay with 4.25. And this one oddly falls between the base and the rye, but they're all 4.25. So.
Oh, that's so good. I can't drop this one any lower than a 4.5. I've given the first two a 4.5 for different reasons. This also earns a 4.5 to me for completely different reasons. Like, the maple characteristics of this are very, very just, they're consumable. They're not overwhelming. They're not crazy in your face. It's just a really nice maple tone that comes along with this barley wine. And I haven't had nearly enough barley wines lately, so there's a bit of me that's just like super excited to be drinking barley wines right now. But this is just so good. It's so overwhelmingly good. I'm leaning towards a 4.75 on the maple jacket. I'm leaning towards a 4.75, but I'm going with a 4.5. That is where this is going to stand. Darn good offerings here from Revolution. I am so pumped to get through the Death Star stuff. Like, we've got a bunch more from Revolution in the cellar right now. I'm super excited to try that because I have not spent nearly enough time, apparently, with Revolution Brewing Company. And we have our golden retriever down here who is joining the fun, and Ross has got her taken care of. So really, really good stuff here from Revolution. This was a fun series to do.
It's really, I'm so happy you liked them. I figured you would, but I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was really excited about this one. I knew I'd like him. I was curious what your thoughts were, and I'm glad they.
This is probably my favorite Milwaukee beer review experience since we did Central Waters Y2K barley wines.
Wow. Okay.
This is my favorite Milwaukee beer review experience. Just blown away by these. Well done, Revolution. You can find us on the rest of our social media channels. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on Untappd. We are on Twitter. We are here on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Smash that like button. Hit the subscribe button as well. We'd love for you to see all the great stuff that we're putting out on a weekly basis. We've got our beer tournament going on, probably actively right now, but it might be in the past, depending on when we release this video. I'm not supposed to be timing this. I'm not supposed to be giving you any indication of when we recorded this, but really good stuff for you. So we'll see you in a future episode, and thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.